We are recording this so that you'll be able to go back and reference things later. We'll make this available to all of our Bullet families. A couple of things about this presentation. This is something that we've been doing for several years. Every year there's changes to it and it evolves. So if you're looking at this a year from now, I would caution you, or 2 years from now, I would caution you that there may be some changes. So make sure that you're staying up to date with everything. If you look in the comments section, Todd has a link to the student, the college student athlete, guide to college-bound student athletes. He says, read it after your sophomore year. I would read it now. Read it as soon as possible. Even if your child's an 8th grader or a freshman, it's good to get to know the information. And there's stuff in there that, as we'll talk about, the recruiting process is going to start as soon as you walk into school your freshman year as a student. So secondly, I'm going to be screen sharing this entire time, so I'm not going to be able to see comments or questions. I would ask 2 things. Number 1, make sure that you're muted when you're in the room. And number 2, hold your questions till the end. Chances are I'm going to cover it later on in the presentation. I'm sure people will have some questions at the end, and that's fine, and I'm happy to answer those. But like I said, since I'm screen sharing, I'm just going to go through it. It's easier for me to keep a rhythm and cover everything rather than constantly stopping and answering questions, many of which will be likely asked. So giving people a couple extra minutes of stalling here so they can get in, but I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we'll go ahead and get into this. Okay, so as I said, this is the Academy Bullets Guide to NCAA Swimming, and we're going to go ahead and get started. This is a 3-part presentation. The first part, we're going to talk about the NCAA rules. The NCAA rules, as I mentioned, are going to be most of the stuff that's covered in that particular in that college guide to student athletes. I'm not going to go through every rule, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to everyone. You guys are able to read that yourselves and cover it yourselves. Some of the rules, I'll highlight some of the rules that are absolutely, hold on a second. Sorry, Todd was texting me. Okay, so I'll definitely cover rules that applies to every single person, but I'm not going to cover things that might have some that only certain people will apply to. So also, if we did a rules, if I covered all the rules, it would take a couple extra hours just to do that. I'm going to walk you through a 4-year timeline so that you can, starting your freshman year in high school all the way till the time you graduate, and things that we think you need to be doing in a certain time that you want to get them done. And then finally, we're going to go over some recruiting keys, some do's and don'ts, things that you're allowed to do, not allowed to do, things that colleges are allowed to do and aren't allowed to do. Some of that intertwines with the rules, but these are some also tips on some things that you can do as an athlete or as a parent to give your for you to get the most out of your recruiting process and get the most money you possibly can, because that's what we're here for. Todd gave you the link to this, but if you go to ncaa.org, click on the student athlete link, and then click on the guide to college-bound student athletes. That's the book I was referencing. This is what it looks like. This is the cover. It's a couple dozen pages, and it's got literally everything you need to know, all the rules, what you can do, what you can't do, what colleges can do, what they can't do, timelines and all sorts of things, academic requirements, everything is in here. So I encourage you to read this first and foremost. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I mean, it's really a well done document. Next thing you want to do is you want to go again, this is the same ncaa.org, click on the same student athletes link, but 2 down below, you're going to have the NCAA Eligibility Center. The Eligibility Center is a clearinghouse for all of your academic information. Your high school will submit your transcripts up to the Eligibility Center, the testing, ACT and SATs, your test scores will go to the Eligibility Center. There's one thing you have to do, which I'll talk about later on how to make sure that happens. But all of your academic information is there. And then the colleges will go and look at that. If you are not registered with the Eligibility Center, you cannot set up a college recruiting trip, an official visit. Colleges won't, if you're not in there, they won't look at you. If your information isn't up to date, that's going to be a problem too. Most of this is pretty passive on your part. You register for it. There's a few things you have to do, but a lot of this is making sure that your school uploads your transcripts and things after each semester. They want to make sure that you're on track to graduate and doing all the things you have to do, because the NCAA has some specific requirements. So this is really, really important that you do this. You can register for it at any time, but certainly by your sophomore year, you want to be registered for the Eligibility Center. So the NCAA has some initial eligibility requirements. These are for NCAA Division I. Division, and these are the most stringent guidelines. Division II, maybe these guidelines are a little bit softer. Division III is even softer. NAI has their own thing. I think we're all familiar with the NCAA. There's 3 divisions. Division I is the bigger schools. Division II are slightly smaller schools, and then Division III. The biggest difference between Divisions I and II, they offer scholarships. Division III cannot give scholarships, but don't discount Division III schools because they have a ton of grant money that they give out. So you can get a kind of quote unquote scholarship, but you can get grant money, and there's a lot of opportunities to get your college tuition reduced. Then the NAI, which is the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. It's schools mostly in the United States. There are some Canadian schools in there also. And it's typically really, really small schools. So those are 4 different levels of competition that you could be looking at and should be looking at. So number 1, you must graduate with a 2.30 GPA or higher in 16 core courses. So core courses is the important phrase there, because core courses, the NCAA in the guide to student athletes, they list what core courses are. And typically it's, 4 years of math, it's history, it's a foreign language, it's English, those types of core curriculum courses. Some schools, if you're in band, you get a grade to be in band. That doesn't count. PE does not count. Music does not count. Those kinds of things. So you want to make sure you must graduate with 16 core courses, and you must complete those core courses in 8 semesters. So what does that mean? You start your freshman year, you have 2 semesters each of your 4 years in high school, and you must complete the core course requirements by the time you graduate. If you get to your senior year and your second semester, in the middle of the second semester of senior year, and you realize that you only have 15 core courses, you would have to take a summer school course, but that doesn't necessarily mean you'd be eligible to compete your freshman year. You would have to get that appealed. In all the years we've been doing this, I've only had 1 swimmer that had an issue with that. And that was because she took a course her freshman year, and then by the time she was a senior, that course was reclassified and she was never notified. So she was able to get an appeal and taken care of, but she was actually on campus and she was getting letters under her door that saying she hasn't paid her tuition because they were not applying her scholarship at all. So she ended up getting it worked out, but it's one of those things you just want to make sure and it's pretty easy to track. But again, it's something we'll talk more about later. You also must meet the requirements on a sliding scale. Okay, so here's the sliding scale. So if you have a 2.30 GPA, you can only compete if you got a 980 on your SAT, or if you get a 75 on your ACT, some score. Okay, if you have a 3.5 GPA, you only need a 430 on your SAT and a 39 on your ACT. And the reason of the sliding scale is to keep schools from padding kids' grades that maybe are struggling students, but they're good athletes, and they're just passing them along. This is kind of just a checks and balance on that to make sure that your academics is complete. Probably the most important thing is that while you have these standards and everything, if you're looking at there aren't a lot of colleges that a 430 SAT is going to get you in, especially if you're looking at major universities. If the score is that's just not good enough. All of the academic requirements that we're talking about are the NCAA minimum requirements. most, if not many, if not most universities have much higher academic standards. I don't think anybody with a 500 SAT is going to be going to a service academy or the Ivy League. So just something to keep in mind. These are the minimum requirements, but the universities are going to have their own standards also. So I will talk more about rules as we're going through, but those are just some of the key things I wanted to highlight. So now we're going to go into the timeline. So starting your freshman, you're getting into school your freshman year, you want to meet with your guidance counselor with the NCAA core course listing, and there's worksheets in that guide that we mentioned at the beginning with that you can take and look at. They probably have stuff online too at ncaa.org. And then you can go through and make sure that your courses, you can go online to the Eligibility Center and look up your high school and look up the core courses. That's something that's relatively new. And you can look at the core courses that the school offers and make sure that way too. But I recommend you meet with your guidance counselor. This is nothing new to them. Make sure that you're on track. Less of a deal as a freshman. This is a much bigger deal junior and senior. But especially freshmen, you're not taking many electives. So pretty much you're just getting slotted into many, what would be typical core courses anyway. And get good grades. Academics is every bit as important as your best times. And academics is really critical. College coaches are looking for good student athletes because they know when you get to college, that you're not going to have your parents there hounding about your grades. So that's going to become the coach's job. So if you have a weak GPA, that means more work for the college coach. And in terms of good grades, you know, I found on all my years is that most of the kids that get into grade trouble that I've coached got into grade trouble because they weren't keeping up with their work and their homework. So, and I will tell you that it's easier to catch up than it is to, it's easier to keep up than catch up. So I'm going to stress grades every year of this thing. So make sure that getting good grades is really, really important. You want to set up an account with CollegeSwimming.com. We are blessed in our sport to have a website called CollegeSwimming.com. My daughter was played softball in college, and there was nothing like this at all. But CollegeSwimming.com is you can get all college swimming results, national, conference, dual meet results. If you go on there right now, there's pages, there's probably 20 or 30 pages of results just from this year, maybe even 10 or 15 pages just from this month alone. Every college, they get all the results from all the colleges on there. And that's a great place to start because you can look at conference and national results. And right now we are in the college conference season. College conference results are going on right now as we speak. So, you know, now's a great time to be going on to the CollegeSwimming.com and look at college results because it'll give you an idea of where you stack up among some of these schools. You might be thinking, you know what, I'm going to go swim for Texas. You know, I can do this, or I'm going to go swim for Stanford or Cal. And you go on there and you're like, oh, wow, those guys are really, really fast, or those women are really, really fast. Maybe I got to rethink this a little bit. So, you know, or maybe you're thinking, hey, I want to go to this school. Like, wow, I thought they'd be faster, you know, but you're looking at conference results and you might be looking at one school, but then all of a sudden another school catches your eye. You can click on the link. Everything is clickable. So you can move around the website and you can get lost in that website for quite a long time if you're doing that. But it's a great way to explore colleges for you. Like I said, there's links to the schools and the conferences. On the links, they'll tell you the school size. They'll tell you test scores required for admissions, average cost to attend. They have a team's time list. This is really valuable because you go on there, you look and you want to go swim for this particular team. Let's say you are a 100, 100, whatever, and you click on their link for that event. All of a sudden you're realizing, wow, I'd be the second fastest swimmer. That's a good clue that they would be interested in you. Or you're the 8th fastest swimmer. It's probably a clue that you're not going to be a scholarship candidate for that school. So it's, you can also click, and figure out how old those swimmers are. You know what? Maybe all the swimmers ahead of you are seniors, and so they're going to be gone by the time you get there anyway. So those are just some advantages when you're looking at that. Latest recruits to sign. Who are they signing now? You might be a sophomore looking at some of these schools and you find out they just signed a really fast junior in your event. And so, that might diminish your recruiting, or they're really, really hurting in that event. So you can see you really track the schools and get a lot of information. Registration is free. I was just looking up this today, and I think I got this right. Used to be $29 one-time registration fee, but now apparently it's free, which is even better. But even at $29, it's a steal. The way CollegeSwimming.com really makes their money is they charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars to the college teams to be able to access this data. When you register for this, the CollegeSwimming.com will link your name, your CollegeSwimming.com account to your USA Swimming Times database. So all your times come in, and the college coaches will go in, and they might say, I'm looking for a 55-second 100, whatever, and I'm going to go down the list, and then we're going to see what athletes are registered for CollegeSwimming.com that meet that criteria. So it's a one-stop shopping for college coaches, and it's one-stop shopping for you too. So it's a brilliant website. It's invaluable in the recruiting process. And I highly recommend you set up an account for that. Sophomore year, again, you want to verify with your guidance counselor and the NCAA core course list to make sure you're on track. You want to complete the online registration at the eligibilitycenter.org. Again, we talked about this earlier. You have to register for eligibilitycenter.org. And there's some things you do have to do. I'll talk about in a little bit. There's an amateurism questionnaire that you have to fill out and things like that. Again, just register for it. It's self-explanatory. Personally, I've never done it, so I couldn't help you with the answers on it, but I've never had anybody ask me a question about it either. So I'm assuming it's pretty self-explanatory. Get better grades. This is even more important than getting good grades. One of the things that colleges look for is if your grades are going up or if your grades are going down. You can stumble out of the blocks your freshman, maybe even your sophomore year, but if you rally your junior, senior, you're getting, let's say you're getting 2.5, 2.8, all of a sudden now junior, senior, you're getting 3.5, 3.8, 4.0, whatever. You're really getting it, really nailing it in school. You're really getting it done. Then that's a good sign. But if you're getting 3.8s and 3.7s, and all of a sudden you're a junior and senior, you're getting 2.5s, they're going to wonder what you're on. They're going to wonder if you're in drugs or something, because, why did you fall off the table? And that's a horrible sign. So you can have two athletes with the same GPA, one's going up and one's going down. They're going to recruit the one that's going up. Getting better grades is really good. One of the things that I used to always talk to our athletes about when I was coaching high school was each year, try to get your grade point average up 2 to 3 tenths of a point. If you got a 2.8 your freshman year, let's get a 3.0 the next year. Junior, let's get it up to 3.2, 3.0. And let's keep working that grade point average up. And again, if you're showing some that you can, that you're getting good grades and you're not going to have to be babysat, outside of the pool to get those good grades, that's going to make you very valuable to colleges. The NCAA did something a couple of years ago, and it really accelerated the timeline for recruiting for student athletes in all sports. And the reason they did it, it used to be that this would, you would do all of your research your junior year, you would do your college recruiting trips at the beginning of your senior year, and you would make a decision your senior year. Now, college coaches can start calling you before your junior year. You're making your college recruiting trips your junior year, and you're picking a college early or late, probably sometime in your junior year. You're making a verbal commitment to a school. The reason they did that is because in other sports, football, basketball, softball, baseball, volleyball, these sports that they had athletes that were verbally committing as freshmen and sophomores in high school. So now by moving everything up, it makes it better for those sports. But unfortunately, I think it makes it much more difficult for swimming. And I think it's really makes the recruiting process much more difficult on the men's side. You take a high school boy that's going into their sophomore year in high school and compare them to going into their senior year, that boy could become a man and could be 6 inches taller and 50 pounds heavier of muscle. And you don't, as a sophomore year recruit, that may not show up. So it's I've talked to a lot of college coaches about this, and it's a real frustration for them too. So, it's just, you just got to do the best you can on that. And, I think everybody knows it's an issue. So I think this is where being organized and doing your research is really, really important. So in your sophomore year, and this is early in your sophomore year, you want to start defining your college. Do you want to go to a big school or a small school? Is there a specific area of the country that you like or hate? If you love snow, and you're probably not going to go to Florida or Texas or someplace like that. But if you hate snow and you love hot, warm weather, you're going to be going somewhere south of the Carolinas or, Arizona or something like that. So you're going to want to go to a particular part of the country. Whenever I've asked swimmers, what part of the country do you want to go to, or do you want a bigger school? Their first knee-jerk reaction is, I don't care, it doesn't matter. And then you're like, okay, so I went to Loras College in Dubuque, Iowa. It's 2,000 kids. Is that something appealing to you? No, God, no, that's way too small. Okay, so it does, do you want to go to Texas where you'll be, having to walk on and you'll struggle to make team, you can get caught? Well, no, I don't want to do that either. So, there's different aspects of it. You may not want to live in Alaska. You may not want to live in Hawaii. You may not want to live in Florida. So really think about what parts of the country you want to live in. Another kind of rule of thumb is that 5 hours away from your home can be the difference between driving home and flying home. And so if you want to be able to have the opportunity to come home more often, you want to think about that. If you want to have the opportunity for your parents to see you swim more often, that might be a factor. If you want to get as far away from your parents as possible, then think about that too. But there's all sorts of aspects, like little things that I think most people kind of blow off. So I can't stress this enough to really think about geography too. Does the school offer my major? We had a swimmer several years ago wanted to go to become a pharmacist, and I can't remember who it was, but anyway, he was looking at pharmacy schools, and there's at the time, there were 6 pharmacy schools in the country that had swim teams. So it really narrowed down his options. So, you have to look at that. Now, they may not offer your major, but maybe your major is a secondary major anyway, where you're going to have to go to school, you're going to have to go a 5th or 6th year, but make sure that that school has a path to get you to your major. Some schools are like, 80% of our kids that wanted to become pharmacists ended up going to one of these 5 schools, and 90% of them got in, or 80% went. So, that's the kind of things you want to look at too. Are you fast enough to swim for the team? Schools have a list of times that they have to walk on. They protect those as if they were state secrets. They don't want people seeing those times, but believe me, they have a list of times. And do you want to go to a team where you're going to have to walk on and you're going to be the 10th fastest swimmer in your event? The odds of you competing are going to be slim. The odds of you traveling with the team are going to be slim. And you're thinking, yeah, but I really want to go swim for this coach. Well, if you're the slowest person on the team, you're not going to be swimming for that coach. You're going to be swimming for a grad assistant over in lane 8 while the head coach is by lane 1. So that's something to figure. Are you too fast? You go to a school where you're the fastest swimmer by 5 seconds and you break a bunch of school records. Will you get faster? Probably not. That happened to me. I actually went to a small college and I broke 10 school records my freshman year. I'm embarrassed to say what those records are because they were so slow. I broke school records in practice, but I didn't get faster because I wasn't challenged at all. And so I actually grew to dislike swimming competitively. I loved the sport, but I just didn't like to train anymore. And I won't say I became burned out because we didn't train hard enough to get burned out, but going to the right, so that's another aspect of picking the right program. Can you score in their conference meet? Most schools, if you can score in their conference meet, that's an indicator of scholarship ability for them to give you a scholarship. Now, there are schools, if you're Texas men, Stanford women, Stanford men, Cal, Georgia, schools that are Florida that are competing for a national title, they're looking to score at NCAA. So scoring in conference is nice, but it doesn't really help you. So now, on the guys' side, this is more challenging because there aren't a lot of sophomore high school swimmers that are fast enough to compete against college men. They just haven't developed yet. So it's a little bit, kind of, are you in the ballpark for the guys? But I think this is a good rule of thumb as to whether or not your ability to get a scholarship. And if you're going to a top school, and that could even just be, Drury at Division II or Denison or Kenyon in Division III. Those are schools that compete for national titles too. So can you score at, if you're looking at those levels of swimming, and I think everybody should, then can you score in those meets too? If you're looking at the top schools, it's nationals, but the vast majority of the schools, conference is a good indicator of whether or not you can get a scholarship. plan on visiting a few schools. It's a little bit harder now when you're a sophomore. If you visit a school prior to August 1st of your, the summer before your junior year, on August 1st, going to a school means you're just going on campus. You're getting the standard tour. They're going to take you around, show you all the facilities, talk about the schools and things like that. I do think it's a good idea to visit a couple of schools. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. And there's plenty of schools within 3 or 4 hours of here that you could visit just to check out and get that experience of being on a campus. If it's a school that you seriously have some thoughts about attending, you could email the coaches and let them know. They can't meet with you or anything, but you know, who knows? Maybe you bump into them if they know you're going to be on campus. So, something to think about, just to give you some experience on going onto campuses and getting a feel for what that is like. You want to, sophomore year, you're going to start communicating with colleges and they're going to start communicating with you soon. So it's a good idea to look at your email address and your voicemail, a voicemail on your phone. So, you know, if your voicemail is some immature little thing and it's like, you know, or talking about partying or something like that, you know, and it's, you know, you want that to, that's going to be one of the first impressions they have of you. Make sure it's professional. A simple email address, you know, first name, last name, whatever, you know, some numbers after it, you know, if it's partylikearockstar@gmail.com, it's probably not going to be a good indicator that you're going to get seriously recruited. So again, this isn't a huge thing for most people, but it's just something to, it's one little thing just to think about. You know, your voicemail could be very simple. My name is Bill Schalz. You know, think I'm unavailable right now. Please leave a message to the beep and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Boom, done. Go Bullets after that. That's good too. You want to start researching colleges your sophomore year. We talked about CollegeSwimming.com. There's some other things that we'll talk about a little bit later where you can do that. You want to start creating a big list of colleges, over 20 colleges. I would say 50, but nobody does that. But you've decided geographically where you want to go. You've decided largely big schools or small schools. You're starting to now, you're going to go into college swimming and start looking at conference results. Just make a spreadsheet of schools and, you know, and start making lists. You can even, you know, put a link to that school, the college, you know, on the spreadsheet too, contact information, all sorts of things. But create a huge list. And here's why. Because when you, at the beginning of your junior year, you're going to start going on college recruiting trips. You're limited to 5 official visits. So there's 3 types of visits. There's an official visit, an unofficial visit, and you're just going on your own. An official visit is where the school invites you out. They pay for everything. They fly you to the school or they pay your mileage if it's close enough to drive. They put you up, typically, there's been some changes with COVID, but typically you're staying with one of the swimmers on the team on campus and you're shadowing that student. You might go to some of their couple classes with them. You're doing tours, you're doing the whole thing. You're going to watch swim practice. You're going to get a one-on-one meeting with typically the head coach. Second is and everything is paid for, 100%. Second is the unofficial visit. You're interested in a school, you're gonna go out. They'll invite you out to the campus or you tell the coaches you wanna go and they're like, yeah, sure, you can come on out for an unofficial. And an unofficial visit, they're not paying anything. You cannot stay with the team. You'll have to stay at a hotel or just do a day trip. But if you're gonna spend the night and things like that, they can do things for you. They can give you a tour. You can do some shadowing during the day with the student. And you might even get a meeting with one of the coaches, but it's it's less formal, less organized. And then, like I said, you know, if before August 1st, you can't even they cannot do anything really specific with you. But if you start going on college recruiting trips and you only made a list of 5 schools here, and now all of a sudden you're short. I mean, you like the schools you looked at, they're not doing it for you. You're just not, it's not exciting to you. You're going to want to make sure that you have some backup schools, and you can always start with a big list and then just start peeling those lists off. But the more lists schools you have at the beginning, the more options you're going to have at the end. So this may be the most important slide, and sadly, it's one of the things I think that people over the years have kind of neglected the most. Meet as a family and create a firm budget. Meet as a family and create a firm budget. This is so important. I'm going to have basically 2 slides for this. So why do we want to meet as a family? You as parents have an amount of money that you can spend on college, on your child's college. Might be $1 million, it might be $10,000. I don't know. But it's important when your child is looking at schools that they're realistic. Okay. University of Notre Dame. I know Joe Rentz is on here, so he probably knows the cost, but $70,000, $80,000 a year to go to school there. Let's call it 80 because the math is a little bit easier. $80,000 a year to go to school at Notre Dame. And you don't have this meeting with your child, but you know in your back in your head that really it's like $20,000 is what you can afford. Okay. Notre Dame comes back and says, yeah, we'll give you, let's talk scholarships. Let's do that. And they come back and say, we're going to give you a 25% scholarship. And you're excited because you're thinking, oh man, I'm getting a scholarship to Notre Dame. Then you start doing the math and you realize you owe $60,000. And Notre Dame's giving you 20, your parents come up with 20, you're $40,000 short. It's midway through your junior year, everybody's starting to accept offers. And then your parents come to you and say, we can't afford that, we can't do that. And now you're stuck. Now you have to start the recruiting process over. It's going to come up in most families, it's going to come up. Unless you're a multimillionaire, blah, 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 God bless you, and you can afford to send your kids wherever they want to go at whatever cost, then you don't have to worry about it much. But for the rest of us mere mortals, this is going to come up. And it's important as parents, if you're talking about this with a sophomore and they are looking at this and you get some realistic expectations about what the scholarships are, and people think, well, I don't want to limit my child, I don't want to limit their dreams. Well, again, it's going to happen at some point. It's much, much better if it happens early in the process than really late in the process, because if it happens late, now all of a sudden you have to start the recruiting process all over again, start reaching out to a whole other set of coaches. And now you're behind the 8 ball because everybody's already getting offers. So it's an uncomfortable thing, but it's really, really important. Debt and loans are also an option. Personally, for the most part, I think debt and loans are kind of crazy, but there's an interesting documentary. It's called Broke, Busted, Disgusted, I think is what it's called. And they interview kids that have gotten student loan debts and have racked up, tens of thousands of student loan debts. And they're like, well, how are you going to pay off the debt? Well, I don't pay off my debt. My parents do, the government do. People don't realize that they have to pay these debts off. Now, it's I was struck by that, but I think if you do your research, yes, you may not go to your dream school, but, if you can go to school A or school B, they're both comparable schools academically, and that's basically what we're talking about. Their swim teams are pretty comparable too, but one you go for free, and the other one you're going to rack up $40,000 or $50,000 of student loan debt. To me, that's a no-brainer. Don't rack up the debt. $50,000 worth of student loan debt's a really nice car coming out of college, and you're making car payments for the next 10 years of your life while you're trying to get this loan debt paid down. Biggest student loans I ever heard was $500,000. A former swimmer had $500,000. The swimmer had one major and then switched at the end and ended up going to school for 6 years and then went on to medical school, and have no idea how that debt's going to get paid off. But anyway, so again, and this is a family decision. This is up to you personally. So I just think it's something you have to look at. Getting a $10,000 loan so you can get over the hump to go to an Ivy League school or one of the top schools in the country, Stanford, Notre Dame, schools like that, Northwestern. Yeah, I mean, that might make sense because there's evidence out there. There's a lot of statistics out there that kids who graduate from those schools have a higher chance of getting jobs, and they get paid more when they get those jobs. So typically. So that might be something that's worth it to make that extra investment. So again, this is my 100% my personal opinion on this area, and I'm not going to talk about it again. Second semester, sophomore year. Now first semester we created this big list, but now we got to start drilling down, and not only like who's in your top 10, but who's in your, and who is in your top 10 schools, and you want to start contacting those coaches. And this is right after Christmas. Get it going after it. Contact your top 10 to 15 schools. And there's multiple ways you can do it. You can, There's multiple ways you can do it. You can email, you can call, you can text. Schools have forms that you can fill out online. CollegeSwimming.com probably has a link to where you can reach out to coaches. Some different people are different at different media. I'm far more responsive to text messages than I am to emails. I know people that check their emails 200 times a day. I check my emails 2 or 3 times a day. So I'm much better. I check my phone far more often. Include your CollegeSwimming.com link if you're going to send an email. So you'll have a link to your bio in CollegeSwimming.com. So make sure you include that. So then they can just do one click and find your information and see if you're, if you're the athlete, you're in the demographic of athletes they're looking at. When I talk about demographics, I'm not talking about race or those kinds of things. I'm talking about how fast you are and your grades and things like that. Include your current coach's email and phone number. If a coach is interested or they're kind of on the fence a little bit, or they have a question, they might want to reach out to the coaches. And so our coaches are used to talking to college coaches. And so that might be just the thing that makes anything you can do to make it easier for this coach to reach you or to recruit you, you want to do that. If there is an online form on the website, and most major schools have that, fill that out 100%, because that's going to be the one thing that it's in a format that they're used to reading, so they can look at that, print it out, or bring it up on their screen, and they're going to be able to quickly find data for you that they're looking for. So in the spring of your sophomore year, you want to start narrowing down your list to 5 schools. And the reason you want to get down to 5, maybe 6, is because, like I said, in a few months, you're going to be going on recruiting trips and you're limited to 5 official visits. You want to start setting up your official visits your junior year. This might happen in the summer more than in the spring. This point might be actually more appropriate for after June 15th, because that's the first day that college coaches can actually call you. And they're not going to be setting up official visits, but you want to make sure that you know that you're interested if it's one of your top schools. And when you set up you ideally want that school visit to be the first semester of your junior year. Most schools are going to do that anyway, but you want that to be first semester junior year. Once you get into second semester for a college swim season, just like us, they have championship meets. They're really, really busy. They have a lot of stuff going on. Then there's spring break where everybody disappears. So, or you have USA Swimming Nationals and things like that, other championship meets that the colleges are starting to, ramp up that part of their season. So the fall, everybody's kind of in recruiting mode anyway, so it's better to do them then. You want to may take some unofficial visits. If you're starting to do officials and they're, you do a couple of official visits, they're not going well, but you don't want to waste all your officials. You might want, or if you have 6 or 7 schools and you're doing an official visit, I think of 2 schools that are close to each other. Let's say you're doing an official visit to Purdue and Indiana's right down the street. Okay, well, it's not right down the street, but it's a couple hours away. So while you're in that neck of the woods, you head down there and you do another visit or something along those lines. So that's something that you might want to think about too. But again, and a lot of these things will fall into place for you when you start doing this. You'll start thinking, God, I just can't make up my mind. There's 7 or 8 schools. I'm going to hang on to these, but see who's inviting in official visits and then maybe look at unofficials too. So, but again, I think if you do your research and you get drilled down, and you've done it correctly, and you're looking at schools that are interested in you, 5 visits, 4 visits will be plenty. Beginning June 15, college coaches can contact recruits electronically. They can call you, they can email you, they can do social media posts and text messages and things like that. Any type of ways that you can think about, they can DM you on, Twitter, Snapchat, what, I don't know. I never even opened a Snapchat account, so I don't know how it works, but through various social media mediums. And again, this is something I'm going to talk about later, but it's a good time to start looking at your social media and making sure there isn't some untoward stuff on there, or some stuff that could be misconstrued. You're at a party with a red Solo cup that typically doesn't mean milk or lemonade. It typically means beer or mixed drinks. So, things like that. Make sure that there's nothing on there that could even let coaches think that you're somebody that you're not. So, but coaches can be getting, so one of the things about June 15th, this used to be like the magic day and everybody freaked out about it. The head coach is going to reach out to 4 or 5 athletes that day. That's going to be their absolute blue chip. We want you. We we absolutely want you. But those athletes are also getting calls from maybe 5 or 6 schools. Most kids don't get a call on June 15th. They might get a text, they might get an email, they might get something more generic. And then later on in the month, they'll start getting calls from coaches, or you reach out to a coach and the coach is going to be anxious to talk to you. So don't freak out if your phone isn't ringing off the hook on June 15th. August 1st is the beginning of official and unofficial visits on college campuses. We talked about what that means, officials and unofficial visits. Also, if you visit a campus before August 1st, again, it's going to be just limited to the college tour. Junior year, first semester, go meet with your guidance counselor again, make sure you're on track for the core courses for the NCAA, and that your courses are listed, that your transcripts are getting pushed up to the Eligibility Center. When you take the ACT or the SAT, there's a section at the top where you've filled out your name and everything like that, where you can enter codes for various schools. So if you want to go to a particular school and you know their code, you can put your code in there, and the test results will go directly to that school. But you must put the code 9999 in. That's the code for the Eligibility Center. Then your test scores go there. If you do that, you don't need to do anything else. All right. So that's the one thing you have to do. And if you're doing that, the schools are going to get them anyway, because they're going to go to the Eligibility Center regardless. So, but if it's, one of your top 5 schools and you know those numbers, you have them memorized, then go for it. So, so make sure that very simple, all 9s, that will get your scores to the Eligibility Center where they have to go anyway. In 2020, because of COVID, a lot of college campuses were closed, and like all the official and unofficial visits were limited to video conferences, phone calls, and virtual tours. I've talked to several college coaches. Most campuses are open, and they're doing live visits. Most campuses are allowing kids to stay on campus, the recruits to stay on campus. But there are some that are required. They'll do all it's an official visit. They'll do everything. They'll pay for a hotel room for you and your parent or parents to stay. And then you'll still do all the stuff with the team, except at night, you'll have to come back to the hotel room. So it's still an in-person visit. It's still an official or unofficial visit. If it's unofficial, then you're paying for the hotel room. But if it's official, the only thing you're not doing is spending the night in a dorm room. And so, and chances are the hotel's more comfortable anyway. But so it's just one small part that you wouldn't be getting. But most campuses, they are keeping kids, allowing kids to stay on campus, or many, I shouldn't say most, because the ones I talked to. So after your junior year, again, you want to have your guidance counselor send a copy of your transcript to the Eligibility Center. Again, this should be automatic, but it's good to check and make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing. If you transferred and from one high school to another, you moved or whatever, but if you attended more than one high school, you need to go back to your original high school and make sure any transcripts or grades or any academic information is also uploaded to the Eligibility Center in your name. Because if you don't, then your transcripts are incomplete. Your school may sign off that you graduated, but you're going to be missing some core courses. So it's really important that you do that. So hopefully when you'll left on good terms. And I mean, they'll do it anyway, but just make sure that you reach out to your previous high school if you have more than one high school. Prior to registering, this is the end of junior year. Now, instead of waiting until our senior year, we're going to do this at the end of our junior year for 2 reasons. Number one, if you find out that you need 5 core courses and you only have room on your schedule your senior year for 4, you're going to be taking a summer school class. And so this gives you an opportunity to get everything organized before you start your senior year. So at the end of your junior year, meet with your guidance counselor, make sure your core course is on track, make sure that the classes you're taking your senior year will complete the 16 core course requirement. And if it doesn't, then you're going to have to figure out a way to get those courses done. And that's most likely going to be a summer school class. You can do a summer school class and get those credits in there. You just have to have it done within the 8 semester window. And it's very rare that somebody has to take a summer school class to pick up a core class. So somewhere before your senior year, hopefully by your junior year, you've already gotten an offer from a school and you've made a verbal commitment. We're hoping that happens. If it hasn't, then if you're still up in the air on schools, you may have to do some more college trips. They may be official, they may be unofficial. So again, we're just gonna have to keep, grinding out this process until you can get it done. If a school does make you an offer if they do make you an offer, you're better prepared if you visited as many schools as possible. Typically what happens on a recruiting trip is you'll come back, if it's a school that you want to go to, and it's very interesting to me, is that when you are in you go on a college recruiting trip, and it's really interesting. Kids come back and they're either like, whatever, fine, it was good. No, I liked it, it was good. But a lot of times kids will come back from the one and they're like, oh my God, that was awesome. It's exactly what I'm looking for. I couldn't be happier. I'm excited. I can sign today. So, and then we've had other swimmers that have got, it's come down to two really good choices, or two or three, and they've got good offers from two schools and they just got to make a tough decision. So anyway, but that's what all this preparation is about. When taking the ACT or SAT, the 4 9s, you're going to complete an amateurism questionnaire that's on the Eligibility Center website. It's pretty simple and straightforward. There's really not much to it. One question that's come up in the past was, when we go to junior nationals and stuff, kids get, as part of, they get warm-ups and backpacks and things like that. And there used to be a question, I don't know if it's down there, but are you getting more than $100 worth of free stuff? You're not getting that because of you're not getting that as a reward. So it's not considered a payment. So on things like that, just, just mark that no, that you were not compensated for competing in a certain event. So that's just something totally different as part of a sponsorship with Speedo. So that's a team sponsorship. It's not your individual sponsorship. Again, final senior year. Now we're done. This is at the end of your senior. Your teacher your guidance counselor has to send your proof of graduation with your final transcript to the Eligibility Center. I want to make sure that gets done before they head off for summer break, and things like that. And some schools and teachers disappear. Just kind of heads up. Just again, most of this stuff, you're going to go in there, they're probably going to be annoyed at you by now because you keep coming in and the stuff's already done. But it's, again, it's better, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure here. Graduate on time in 8 semesters, like we talked about. When you've decided to go to a school, they're going to make you an offer and you can verbally accept the offer. Okay, that's called it now. Verbally accepting an offer is not binding. But you cannot sign what's called a letter of intent. A letter of intent is a contract between you and the school. It's a 1-year contract. Scholarships are not 4-year scholarships. They're 4 1-year scholarships that they make every year. So you'll get a 1-year agreement. It's very, very rare that a school would pull a scholarship after your freshman or sophomore year or something like that. You've probably done something. You've probably done something that you don't. You were either drinking or you were violating team rules of some sort. Something happened that you're going to lose your scholarship. It's usually that's an extreme step. But there's an early signing period. It's November. This year it happens to be November 10th to the 13th. The college will FedEx you or overnight mail you your letter of intent, the contract. You'll sign it and everything like that, take pictures with your parents and all that stuff. And that outlines what your athletic scholarship is. If you have a blended scholarship with an academic side of it, that's totally separate. This is your athletic scholarship. And so this will tell you what the money is going to be that you're going to get for the next year. This used to be called, it's still called a dead period, but the definition has changed a little bit. It used to be you couldn't reach out, you couldn't talk to the colleges, you couldn't do anything. We had a swimmer a few years ago and her contract was wrong. Her letter was screwed up. They put the wrong amount in. And so Todd and I basically had to reach out and call this coach and figure it out. And turned out it was just they had worded it funny. But anyway, now you can reach out to your coach and ask questions and things like that. So it's not a total dead period. The coaches just can't recruit during this period. They can't actively try to recruit and try to sway you from whatever school. If you do not sign during this period, The next signing period starts in the spring, March or April, where that you cannot sign your letter. So a verbal commitment is not binding, but it's extremely bad form if you do a verbal commitment and then back out of it and go with another school. But anyway, so now the recruiting process, I know we've been talking about a little bit. I talked a little bit earlier about education. The three most important numbers to college coaches are your GPA, your SAT, and your ACT scores. Your grade point average, SAT, ACT are extremely important. As I talked about earlier, one of the biggest things when a college coach meets with his athletic director at the end of the year and does a performance review, one of the biggest things they're looking at, obviously they want to know how fast the team swam. And quite frankly, they're typically more interested to see how they swam in the conference meet than the NCAA meet, but that's a different story. Anyway, but one big aspect is going to be academic performance of the team. You're going to school for an education, for a degree. Most of you are not going to go pro in swimming. I think we've had one or two athletes that ever went pro after they competed in college. So it's very, very rare that you're going to go pro. And the schools know this. When you're looking at schools, one of the things you're going to look at is graduation rates of the program. You're going to look at the ACT, what's the grade point average of the team. Those are things that you're going to take into consideration. Schools know that. And so they put a premium on that. Some coaches part of their bonuses based on their team GPA. And so also, if your grades are an indicator of your grades in high school are an indicator of what your grades in college are going to be. If you have a 2.5 GPA and your parents, when you got those kinds of grades, when you're at home with your parents, these college coaches are kind of wondering what your grade point average is, how much work are they going to have to do to get your grades up? Like I said, college coaches are expected to have graduation rates of 95 to 100% and strong GPAs. 3.0 is a bare minimum. There are schools out there 3.5, 3.6 GPAs, and that's really, really important. And, that's job security for the coach. And so the coach isn't going to be recruiting kids unless they have good grades and good academics. And the other aspect too is that if your grades are high enough, you can qualify what's called a blended scholarship, where you can get athletic money and academic money, and those numbers are combined. So we'll talk more about that later. It's important to know, a lot of people think, oh, the college coach and I, we're buddies and we're going to, we're in this together. Not really. You guys both may have the same goal to get you to that school, but the college wants you to attend their school and the coach wants to pay you as little as possible to get you there. You want the college to pay as much as possible. Okay, so that you are definitely on opposite sides of the coin there. And so why do college coaches care why do they want to lowball you as much as possible? So each team is limited to a certain number of scholarships. If you're a Division I women's swim team, you are limited to 14.0 scholarships overall. That's over the course of 4 years. That's not per year. Men's Division I, 9.9. Why is the men's number lower? Because of Title IX. Title IX, a men's football team will have could have upwards of 100 scholarships. So that means they have to keep balance between women's and men's programs. There's have to have the same number of programs, those kinds of things. So so men's is only 9.9 scholarships. That's not a lot. Division II, 8.1, 8.1, and NAI 8.0, 8.0. Again, Division III, there is no scholarship limits because they don't offer scholarships, but they have lots of grant money. We once had a girl go to Denison and there was $1,000 scholarship out. She got a $1,000 grant because there was a woman who lived in Chicago and she was a big fan of the swim team, and she donated $1,000 every year to be given to a student from the Chicagoland area who was also on the swim team. So just kind of random stuff like that. So, a coach, if you're trying to build a championship program, you need to get as many athletes in there on small partial scholarships as you can. And that's the goal. So that's why, and if a college coach absolutely positively, you may say, hey, look, coach, you offered me 25%. I really need 30. I don't have 30. I don't have an extra 5% of a scholarship to give out. It's just the math isn't there. I am limited. And this is an NCAA rule that cannot, and they're not, you can't budge. So, you know, you're going to be negotiating with professional salesmen and saleswomen. College coaches spend a lot of their time recruiting and selling their school. College admissions directors spend all of their time recruiting and selling their school. And they're really good at their jobs. You know, they're going to go out there and make this, you know, they're going to do everything in their power to make this the most amazing college experience of your life. When you go on a college recruiting trip, that's going to be the best weekend of that college ever. I'll talk a little more about it, but that's what they're going to do. They're going to roll out the red carpet. They want to make it look great for you, and they want to get you a little bit stargazed, and so that you're like, oh, wow, this is where I want to go, and kind of, oh, forget about the money a little bit. So I think it's important that you stay a little bit grounded during this process. Recruiting is a full contact sport. What do I mean by that? If you wait to be discovered, you will not get recruited. You know, I don't care how fast you are, you know, and, you know, I guess perhaps if you are the #1 fastest swimmer in the world in your event, then yes, you can just sit back and wait for people to come beg you to come swim for them. But like, you know, but again, for the rest of us, that's just not reality. And no matter how fast you are, there's probably 100 other kids out there that are just as fast as you are, or 50 other kids, or 30 other kids, whatever, just as fast as you are. And also, you know, even if you're pretty fast, a college coach from Florida isn't going to call a kid from Chicago and start cold calling kids all over the country to see if they want to come. The more you do, the more you get yourself out there. The CollegeSwimming.com, sending the emails out, researching the schools. The more you do to get out there, the more you know, you might be looking at a school in Wyoming, or you know, California, you know, 1,000 schools in California. You might be looking at a school in California. They have no idea you had any desire to travel halfway across the country to go to school there. But now you're on their radar. So now they do, and they'll start reaching out to you. You have to be proactive in this process. So this is for all the students on the call. You are going to be sitting in a classroom for the next 4 to 5 years. All right. You're going to be the one going to practice every day, looking up at your coach and getting yelled at every single day. All right. Not your parents. One of the, I was criticized many years ago that I did all this stuff for the girls and didn't do nearly as much stuff for the guys. And they thought I was magically, because we had girls that were getting recruited and they were getting their stuff to the scholarships. Well, the girl at the time, a lot of our girls were really doing the work and the guys weren't. And so, I had a twin sister. She did all the college research. I sat on my butt, didn't do very much. And so, might have been a whole different situation if I'd have been more engaged in the recruiting process. But so I think it's important. Your parents aren't going to be doing this. This is, you need to go online as students. You need to go online and research your colleges. You need to contact college coaches yourself. One of the reasons when I was coaching, I discouraged the parents to come talk to me about issues with their kids. I wanted to hear it from the student. And the reason is because kids need to learn how to speak to adults. And I thought that was to me was a great way for them to do that. If they could talk to me as a freshman or sophomore in high school, they're going to be far more confident talking to adults. But you as athletes, student athletes need to do that. And you as parents need to let them do that. Let them make those phone calls. Let the kids stumble through them a little bit because they don't, and you may look at that and kind of cringe like, oh, I can't believe he or she said that. It's okay. These coaches, this is what they do. This is how they, this is what, they're used to that. So the kids are going to make some mistakes and stumble a little bit. And that's fine. But I think it's important. You as students need to take responsibility for this yourselves. And you got to fill out your college applications too when that time comes too. That's another thing I've seen a lot of kids drag their feet on. So what are the main factors in a scholarship offer? It took me an hour to get to this, but this is the reason we're here, right? The needs of the school. So let's say, I'm going to randomly pick a time. Let's say you're a 59-second 100 butterflyer, guy or girl, doesn't matter. So you're looking at various schools, right? And they've already got 5 butterflyers that are going faster than that. And they're young, they're freshmen and sophomores. If they have a ton of what you are, they're not going to spend more money on it. Because remember, we have limited scholarships. Women, 14 scholarships, but they can take 18 swimmers to NCAAs or to their conference meet typically. Same with the men, 9-point knowledge scholarships, but they need about 18 swimmers to fill a team. And oh, by the way, if they have a diving program, they might have to give one of those scholarships to the diving coach. What are the needs of the school? Because that's where they're going to put their recruiting dollars. Is there money available? So you think about, school has 14 scholarships. Well, that's on average 3.5 scholarships a year. But maybe they had just an amazing recruiting class the previous year, and they gave all their money away, and they only have half a scholarship left for this class. So, again, now that funnel got really narrow. On the flip side, maybe they had a horrible recruiting year and they have a boatload. They have 4 or 5 scholarships this year. So, it's important to know those things. And we'll talk about some critical questions coming up that you need to ask the coaches. What are your grades? If I've got 2 59-second swimmers, and one of them has a 3.5 GPA and one of them has a 2.5 GPA, I'm taking the 3.5 GPA swimmer, even if they're a little bit slower. Even if they're a little bit slower. Because I don't want to babysit, and I'm not going to risk having this 2.5 kid screw up my team GPA. So so that becomes critical too. Like we talked about earlier, can you score in the conference as a rule of thumb, or score at nationals if they're a national caliber team? Can you commit early? So what does that mean? We know that the letter of intent day is November of your senior year. But you're going to be doing college recruiting trips a year earlier than that. You're going to be doing college recruiting trips in August, September, October of your junior year. Let's say you're on a recruiting trip and it's an official visit. They want you there. You're having a really good vibe. They've given you that, hey, this is what you want. And you go to the coach and say, look, coach, our family budget is $10,000. Your school costs $40,000. I need a 75% scholarship, academic, athletics, grants. I don't care how we get there. But if you can get me to that point, I will make a verbal commitment right here, right now. And the coach is saying, well, why would a coach do that? Because you might be number 2 on their list. Okay. But for every swimmer that commits to a college, there's 10 or 20 other kids that are committing that didn't commit to that college, that did trips, that did everything and chose a different school. So if they can get you really early in the process, and they might overpay a little bit to get you or meet your demands, that's fine. Then if you can if you can commit early and you can get them to, they make you a scholarship offer and you're like, I'll take it. That's awesome. I've seen coaches make a big offer to an athlete early in day one, like in August of your junior year, just to see if you can commit early, but they'll tell you, hey, look, I can only leave this offer out there for 3 or 4 days because otherwise I'm going to have to pull it back and start looking at other swimmers and refigure out how we're going to spend our money. So committing early, if you're organized and you've got everything organized, if you can commit early by early junior year, that's a big advantage too. Do they know you exist? That's what we talked about earlier, of getting your name out there and those kinds of things. Because if you're sitting back and being passive, they're not going to know you exist. You're not going to get the money. We live smack in the middle of Big Ten country. There's probably 5 Big Ten schools within 3 to 5 hour drive up here. And so everybody knows what the Big Ten logo is. Everybody, in this area, we all know Big Ten. We all know, Illinois, Michigan, Northwestern, Indiana, all the schools in the Big Ten. We all know who they are. And so as we're growing up, the mindset is, oh man, I want to swim for a big school. I want to go to this school, go to that school. And most of the swimmers, most of the swimmers are not fast enough. Most kids coming out of high school are not fast enough to swim in the Big Ten. People don't realize it because everybody knows about, the Pac-10 conference with Stanford and Cal, they're tearing it up right now. And the SEC with Georgia and past Auburn, schools like that, and then there's Florida, Texas. But they don't realize that the Big Ten is, especially in the depth through the top 5 or 6 schools, is one of the fastest swimming conferences in the country. And it's fast. You look at their conference results, I think it's eye-opening to some people. And so I think it's important that you may look at Big Ten schools, and that's fine. But I also think it's important to look at really open up, kind of think about this. So this is a little bit older list, but these schools all have something in common. They've all finished in the top 5 at either NCAA Division II, Division III, or NAIA national championships. So you know, and they're from all over. And look at, I mean, you have Massachusetts, MIT, Johns Hopkins. There's some great, well-known schools, but then you also have SCAD, which is the Savannah College of Arts and Design, Queens College in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so Emory University down in Florida, great, you know, or down in Georgia. There's some great, I mean, a lot of great schools on this list, but the interesting thing, none of them are Division I schools. They're all Division II, III, or NAI schools that happen to be some of the best colleges in the country. And we had a swimmer several years ago who went to a Big Ten school and hated it for multiple reasons. It was one of the teams at the very bottom of the Big Ten, and she just hated it. She didn't like going there. The team wasn't very good. And I think, you know, they would go to meets and they would just get crushed week in and week out at these swim meets. And she ended up transferring to a small NAI school, became the NAIA Swimmer of the Year, swam on a national championship team. And I asked her years later, you know, when she graduated, you know, would you have ever gotten that experience in the Big Ten? And she goes, absolutely not. And so there was multiple reasons. One of the reasons too was that they did race-paced training, and she was like, she wasn't aware of that. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. But it's a big mistake to get caught up in going into the Big Ten. You know, there are schools on this list, Division II and Division III schools, that are much faster than some of the teams at the bottom of the Big Ten. And I mean that athletically. So that they are just much better teams. So you're swimming on a team that's got championship experience. You're competing for a team goal. And again, there's other schools that are not on this list that compete for conference championships too at those levels. And so the whole point of this screen is think outside the box. Look at schools where you can swim and have a fun experience. And, you know, you go to NCAA Division II or Division III, and the only difference between the plaques, I used to have one here, the individual awards is that Division I has 1 scratch mark and Division II has 2 and Division III has 3 scratch. That's the difference. I mean, obviously, you know, crowds are bigger at the Division I meet and things like that. You're not going to see Caleb Dressel at the Division III meet. But on the other hand, you know, you're not going to be watching the meet on television. You're going to actually be at the meet experience at the Division II or Division III meet, where, you know, getting into the Division I meet is very, very difficult. There are people on this call right now who are good enough to swim in those bigger schools, and I encourage you to look at that. But I encourage everybody to look and cast a wide net and really think about where you want to go to school, and don't get hung up on that you have to go to the Big Ten. Oops. I had mentioned earlier that there were some walk-on standards. This just gives you an idea. This is a Division I school. I was allowed to put this on our presentation as long as I did not say the name of the college. These are about 5 years old, but just look at these times. Think about your best event. These are the times to walk on to a major, one of the top 5 school in the country, top 10 school in the country. These are the walk-on standards from 5 years ago. If you look at Stanford, Cal, probably Georgia women, I'm sure the times are faster than that. They don't publish these times because they don't want people to, you know, look at them and you know, and not call them and, you know, or whatever. So these are very secret times, but I always like this information because it really makes you think a little bit about just to walk on, not even get a scholarship, how challenging it can be. So there are 9 questions that I believe are critical. Screenshot these, mark the time. It's about 1 hour and 10 minutes into the video. These are questions that you should ask in your very first phone call. Okay, how many scholarships do you have available? Like I said, a school may have 1, may have half a scholarship, may have 5 or 6 scholarships, who knows? So you want to know that information. The bigger this number is, the better your chances of getting a scholarship. What events will I swim if I were to go to your school? Maybe you're a 200 backstroker and you don't really think you're that good in the 50 and the 100, but maybe this is a sprint school and they don't care and they're going to put you in the sprint event. Or maybe flip the other way around. You really want to focus on the short events. You're a 50, 100 freestyler. They want to make you a 200 freestyler. Do you want to be in a fight every day of your college career for 4 years while they sit there and try to put you into something that you don't want to do? How many freshmen are being recruited for events, and where am I on that list? This is a question that the first 2 questions The first question for sure, that's a solid number. They can give that to you. The second one, they might hum a little bit, or, well, we'll have to figure it out. We really like your events. This is the times, these are the events we're recruiting you in, blah, blah, blah. This is an event that, that they're not going to want to come out and tell you in black and white numbers, because they don't want to give up their, they're kind of holding their cards a little bit close to the vest. But it's important to know where you're at in the list. Now, again, if you go to collegeswimming.com, you can figure out a little bit, but if they'll just tell you, it's much easier. And again, if they say, hey, look, I'll be honest with you, we're looking at 4 or 5 other kids ahead of you, that's a red flag if you're hoping to get a scholarship. And for a couple of reasons. Number one, if one of those 4 swimmers in front of you gets a scholarship, they're probably not doing 2 scholarships in that same event. And if you are the 5th or 6th fastest swimmer on the list that they're recruiting, there gets to a point where they don't want to give out that money. And so a coach has 2 choices. I'm going to take this swimmer, he's 5th or 6th on the list. He's really, I think we can do better, or get somebody faster. I'd rather hold on to that money for another year. So what they'll do is, that coach can then turn around, give that money to a swimmer that's going to be a senior. Let's say it's a half a scholarship. I can bump up 1 swimmer's scholarship by half a scholarship, or give 2 swimmers a quarter scholarship, whatever. And then I know as a coach, I'm going to get that money back the next year. So I create some goodwill on my swim team by giving some kids who've worked really hard a little bit extra money. I get the money back the following year. So again, if you're low on that list, your numbers to get recruited are low. If you're number 1 on the list, your odds, for your scholarship odds are really strong. What are the top 3 priorities of your team in terms of recruiting dollars? What are you spending money on? If they have 5 butterflyers, they're probably not going to say butterfly, even if you are a butterflyer. They'll probably say 50 free and 100 free, because those are the 2 most impactful events in the sport because of the 200 and 400 free relays. So I need 4 really fast 100 freestylers and 50 freestylers. I also need a 100 freestyler and a 50 freestyler for both my medley relays, and I need to fill those individual events. So those are typically a big priority at sprint freestyle. But then they might say, hey, you know what? I need a breaststroke. I need a flyer. I need whatever else we need. Well, if you're a flyer and they say back and breast, again, that diminishes your odds of getting a scholarship. But if they say need flyers and you're a flyer, you're still in the money. Based on my current times, will I travel to a weight competition as a freshman? Or another way to ask the question, how fast do I need to be in order to travel? Again, this is a little bit of a gray area question, because work ethic and things like that can play a part. But you can get an idea of how fast. They should be able to give you that information. And again, if you go 59 and they say 57, one of 2 things. I'm going to have to really bust my butt in the next couple of years and get faster. But if you're not on the travel team, you're probably not on the scholarship list either. So, or if your times are fast enough, obviously you still want to get better, but at least you know where you're at. Will I be invited to your school for an official visit? You have to be very, very, you have to pay close attention to how this question is answered, because there's one of 3 ways to answer this question. Number 1, yes. Number 2, no. And number 3, we don't know. We haven't finalized our list yet. Number 1 means that you are, if you're getting, let me show you a chart here. So all of the swimmers who are going to get a scholarship offer, the pool of scholarship offers or swimmers getting scholarships is smaller than the group of kids that are going to get an official recruiting trip. Okay. If they're not sure they're giving you an official recruiting trip, you're probably out here on the periphery. If they know you're getting, if they say, yes, we are going to bring you out, we absolutely want you to come out for a visit, that means you're probably in close to this area here. Okay. If they don't pay for if it's an unofficial visit, you're out here. Okay. There is 100. So, oops, sorry. Every single swimmer that gets a scholarship offer is going to get an official trip. Not everybody who gets an official trip is going to get a scholarship offer. So if they're not sure if they're going to give you a scholarship offer, then you're down here. Okay, you're on the peripheral. If they know you're going to get a scholarship offer, you're at least in the ballpark. Or if they know they're going to give you an official visit, then odds are pretty good that you're in the money. You're in the hunt for a scholarship offer. Not guaranteed, but no or I don't know. It's almost certain that you're low on their priorities for a scholarship. Will I receive a scholarship offer? You can ask them point blank. If they're going to get an offer. Again, a lot of times they're going to say, I can't make that commitment. They can give you some vague stuff like, well, you're high on our list. We really like you. We really want to have you come out and take a look at you. But there's a lot of, we have to get you on campus. We have to do that. And that's fair, because when you go on a campus visit, they want to know a little bit, that's where they get to really see who you are as a person. And if you are going to gel with the team, because quite frankly, if this is a team full of partiers and you're really serious, or you're a partier and they're really serious, you're probably not going to get a scholarship offer, because they're not going to like you, or they're not going to want to be with you. They're not going to, want to hang out with you. So, and that's a big part of the recruiting process, is the day after the recruiting trip is when the team has a meeting and they talk about whether or not they're going to, what the team and the coaches thought about each recruit. But you can ask, and they can, again, well, we're close, but again, listen closely to the answers, how they answer these things. And, does it sound like a yes or a no? What kind of training do you do? I talked earlier about a swimmer that went to a school that did race-based training. Was not her cup of tea. So I had a swimmer years ago who they were like, we're going to put you in the sprint group. She wanted to go middle distance. So she did not go to that school. And she scored a lot of points against that school over the years. So they may be rethinking that a little bit. So it's important to know what kind of training to do, and if that's what kind of training you want to do. I think it's important to get the budget number out there. Now, some people would argue like, well, do I really want to say the exact budget number, or do I want to give myself some wiggle room? Our family budget is $10,000 based on my academic record and my best times. Is it realistic that you guys will get me to that number? Now, you might want to say, hey, maybe your family budget is 10 and you might want to say 8 there, or maybe your budget's 20 and you want to say 15 or 16, just to give yourself some wiggle room. Again, if you can get a coach that says, hey, we're really interested in you. Look, you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to work hard to do that. I cannot make you a commitment that we're going to give you a scholarship, but come on out for a trip. Let's see how everything goes. And then we can discuss it when you get here. And then we can talk about it the week after your trip. And that's fair enough. But then again, let's look at a school that's $80,000 a year, and they're going to say like, look, I can tell you right now, our school doesn't, we're an Ivy League school. We don't do academic scholarships here. We expect everybody's good, everybody's smart here. And so, well, Ivy League's probably a bad example because they don't do scholarships anyway, I don't think. But I think they do more grants and those kinds of things too. But let's, you go to Stanford, Notre Dame, Northwestern, and they might say, hey, look, we don't do academic scholarships. And I can only promise you the best I can do is, maybe you'd be up for like 30 or 40%. At least then, right off the bat that you're not in the money. But then they, other my schools, they might say, you are our #1 recruit. We're going to do everything we can to get you here. Okay, great. So it's good to know. So, and those questions should be asked very, very early, first couple of phone calls. And I know it seems weird that you're like throwing all that stuff out there on the first call, but it gets everybody's, it gets it out there where you're at. So again, coaches don't want to waste time recruiting you if you're not going to be able to get into their school, or you're not going to go there. So, I think it's important that you get that information out there. Colleges are recruiting hundreds of kids. Indiana, thousands of kids. They seem to recruit every single swimmer in the country, but a lot of schools, not an insult of Indiana, they're just very aggressive and they cast a very wide net. But if you're not going to go to that school, they don't want to. Then, hey, check me off the list and I'll go on to the next swimmer. Now, obviously if you're one of their top recruits, they're going to be disappointed, but at the end of the day, they'd rather hear it early than late. Contact colleges during your sophomore year and ask those questions. Again, remember, this is, you need to get on their radar, and you're going to need to start talking to these schools. And if you feel like you're having a great year and you want to wait until April to do that, that's fine, right after or get in the conversation in January and February. And then, if you have a great meet in March, then you come back, here's my updated times, man, had a great meet, really excited, blah, blah, blah. These coaches may show up at NCSAs, which is a big meet that we go into in the spring. A lot of college coaches go there, and they'll, if you're when colleges go to a swim meet, actually, when college coaches go to any sporting event. So my daughter played softball. Coaches, they didn't go and just randomly watch games. They went and watched a specific game with a specific player. So if a college coach is watching that game and it wasn't a coach you were talking to, they weren't watching you. Now, obviously they're watching the game, so they're going to see you, but it's the same with college coaches. College coaches, if college coaches, this is great. I'm just here. I got to find a butterfly. Okay, that's what the coach is thinking. I need to find a butterfly. Oh, look, the butterfly doesn't start till 10, 12. I don't even have to get out of bed till 9:30, so they'll amble over. They're not coming at 8:30 to watch Heat 1 of the first event if that's not something they're recruiting. So, and they will circle your heat and lane and they'll watch that race, so unless somebody in that heat is actually doing something really special, they might ask around, they might look how old, first thing they're going to do is they're going to look and see how old that swimmer is. So you want to be the circled name on that heat sheet. So that's why you want to reach out to these schools before your spring meets. And then you can always update afterwards. Because college coaches, they don't just randomly go and look at kids. Now, we've had kids that are struggling to get recruited, or maybe for whatever reason, it just wasn't working. And I've gone up to college coaches and said, hey, look, hey, take a look at this swimmer and tell me what you think. Is this fit what you guys are looking for? And, they'll take a look, they'll do that. But again, that's something that when you swim for a team like the Bullets, and we have a lot of contact with a lot of colleges, that's kind of one of the advantages of what we can offer to kids and things like that. So, and we do, and we're happy to do it. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, hey, look, if you can, I already mentioned, I think this example, if you can put a challenge to a coach early in the process, say, hey, look, coach, here it is. I haven't even visited your campus yet, but I've done an unofficial visit. I really liked it. We've talked a lot. I'm really excited about this. Hey, look, if you can get me to 50%, I'll sign today. That might be a stretch for that coach, but again, they're getting to sign you early. They're getting a swimmer that they need. We've had swimmers that were looking at schools and the coach was like, we've really wanted this swimmer, but the fact that this swimmer could not get to our campus until the winter, we're signing kids now. And they were signing slower swimmers because those swimmers were available. And so if you can get it out there really quick and they can knock that off and get that recruiting done and they get that swimmer, get you on their roster, they might do it. So you say, hey, look, I'll commit today. You say yes, I'll do this. If not, I'm going to keep my option open. If you sign a week, you want to give me a call. If it's still there, great. But I'm going to keep looking otherwise. And so, it puts a little bit of pressure on coaches because trust me, coaches are going to put some pressure on you. I've had coaches say, hey, look, you've got 3 days to make an offer. We have another kid that's interested. I know I offered you this money, but it's Wednesday. I need to know by Friday at noon, by Friday at 6 p.m., or else I'm going to offer the scholarship to somebody else. And that's legal. They can do that. So if you can put pressure on them, it gives you a little bit of an advantage. Research. We talked about this. Another great website, even though CollegeSwimming.com has a lot of this stuff, US News and World Report, usnews.com/education. They list colleges, they do rankings, entrance requirements, college demographics, how big the school is, where is it located, what part of the country, what conference are they in. There's all sorts of really good academic information. You're not going to get the athletic information there. That's what CollegeSwimming.com is for. So just another place to go on the internet and find stuff. Talk to your high school guidance counselor. Do not talk to your guidance counselor about swimming. Okay. So, and the reason is because your high school guidance counselor doesn't know anything about swimming, probably, most likely, unless they're your high school coach. I've had guidance counselors tell swimmers, oh, you shouldn't look at that school. You're not fast enough to swim for them. Really? He or she's a high school All-American. Are you sure they're not good enough? They just don't necessarily know, or they don't understand it. So you want to talk to your high school guidance counselor about some of the academic stuff, and they can help you better with what it takes to get into those schools and the procedures and applications and all that other stuff. Talk to your coaches. We do know college coaches. We have a lot of contacts in the collegiate world. We may not know every coach. We certainly don't, but we know other coaches that can give us, hey, I've got a swimmer that's looking to the school. What do you know about it? So again, talk to your swim coach about these kinds of things. We've talked a little bit about committing early, but I just want to cover a little bit more here. The earlier you can commit, the more roster spots and scholarships. Every single time a swimmer makes a verbal commitment, a high school student makes a verbal commitment, That's one roster spot that's not available to you, and that's one scholarship that's not available, a portion of a scholarship that's not available to you. So early is better. While the, and you could argue, well, yeah, but later on there'll be less competition. Yeah, but there's also less money. So that's a problem. Like I mentioned, college coaches love it when kids can sign early, and they'll often, like I said, they may offer you a little bit more than they really want to, so they can entice you to do that, or they'll put a deadline on the offer. They'll say, hey, like sometimes the enticement is, just is almost saying, hey, make this decision now, or else we're, if you got till 2 days to do it. We had a swimmer one time who was being recruited, and he and 2 other guys were being recruited, and the school had, I think, was one full scholarship or something along those lines. And I think they had 3/4 of a scholarship left, and they just told the 3 swimmers, the first one to call me is getting half a scholarship. The second person who's called me is getting 1/4, and the third person's getting nothing. And so now all of a sudden it's like, man, I could get moving here and make a decision. Another reason to commit early is get this process behind you. It's stressful. In the beginning of the college recruiting process, there's this whole romanticized thing like, oh, this is going to be so awesome, and I'm going to be doing all this stuff, and all these people are going to be wooing me. And then you're going to realize, oh my God, talking to college coaches is so boring, and I've got to do this, and I've got to say no to this person. It's, you'll want to get it behind you, trust me. So the more organized you are, the quicker you can get through this process and get it done. Most swimmers are now committing in their junior year. It used to be early senior year, but now I would say by second semester, if you haven't made a commitment, you're definitely behind the curve a little bit. Not to say that it can't happen. College coaches will, like I said, they'll make an expiration date, and they'll put an expiration date on when the offer can, how good the offer's made. I talked about that conversation with the 3 swimmers, first come, first serve. There's all sorts of things that they can do to entice you to sign, but they're actually not giving you any more money to do it. So coaches will do that because they want to get this process done, and they want to get their roster spots filled. Like I said, it's some of the issues, there's no money left. If you wait until your senior year, you will, one other issue with committing late is if you wait until your senior year and you're still doing college recruiting trips your senior year, so are juniors. And a coach looks at, I've got a junior and a senior, okay? Now I'm competing against the junior. And the coach, obviously the coach, unless the coach absolutely needs to positively, you've got 2 swimmers that swim the same stroke, relatively comparable academics and athletics. Maybe the junior's a little bit faster, whatever. Even if they're, all things being equal, the coach may say, you know what, I can get this junior, I'll sign this junior, and then I'll take that percentage of a scholarship and give it to my seniors. And that way I can, again, we talked about that scenario where you can get, be the good guy, and the coach can reward kids who have done well. So, and it is difficult for a coach to increase a scholarship because you've got to be thinking 2 years out because you're giving money to juniors now. So they've got to be able to hold money out for 2 years in order to do that. And so it can be a challenge. So if they get in a position where they're kind of in a bind, they'd rather, and they can do that, then there's a chance that they will do that. So again, you've already competed against kids in your own class. Don't compete against kids in other classes at the same time if you can avoid it. This is an article from 2008, but it's still really interesting. Miles Brand, former president of NCAA, was talking about that there's some real advantages in rewarding good academics. Okay, there is an ocean of academic money out there. Some schools don't do it at all because they're like, you know what, I'm one of the top 5 schools in the country. Everybody, you need a 4.0 to get into the school. So why are we giving out academic money? But the vast majority of schools do give out academic money, and so there's a lot of money out there to get it. You don't want kids to stop playing sports, but there's a lot of opportunities for the academic money. So now we get into what we talked about, blended scholarships easier. There is specific criteria for blending an academic and athletic scholarship. And the reason that there's criteria for that is that they don't want schools using academic money to just enhance athletic money. Yeah, you got a 2.5 GPA, you're 50th and you're 500th in your class, but you know what, we really need you, so we're gonna give you an academic scholarship. So you must have a 3.5 GPA in high school. You must be top 10% of your high school class, 1,200 on the SAT, and a 105 on the ACT. That number used to be 100, so that actually number just went up. So those are the criteria in order to have an academic scholarship and an athletic scholarship if you're going to be playing a sport. And again, it keeps schools, again, some kids 3.0, yeah, you're a good student, but that's, you know, in the NCAA's eyes, that's just not fast enough to get a blended scholarship. So it keeps schools from trying to seek an unfair advantage so that they can get more athletes on their team and bypass the scholarship limits. A lot of schools will require a minimum GPA in order to retain your academic scholarship. My daughter was on an academic scholarship and she had to minimally maintain a 3.0 GPA in order to keep that scholarship. So, you know, so some schools do, a lot of schools will do that. So getting in, you can't just be a slacker in school. You have to actually keep up your academic stuff. But this is really, really important if you're looking at getting some academic money, what you need to do. Learn to say no. This is really important. Once you've narrowed down your list, colleges are going to keep calling you. Okay. And so it's going to get annoying, like I talked about, but it's also annoying for the college coach to find out that they've called you every week for 10 weeks, only to find out that you had verbally committed 6 weeks ago. And so, you know, think of from the college coach's perspective, when you're going to say no to this person. In 30 years of coaching, I've only had one swimmer who actually the coach was rude to them for saying no. And and kind of got on her case about it. And even that was a unique experience because the girl she had narrowed down her list to 2 schools. One school was where the coach had come from, and the other school is where the coach is. So he was upset that she was going to the program that he built and left, and that she wasn't going to swim for him. So it was just a really unique situation. But college coaches come home from practice, they're coming home to their families, but now they got to make recruiting calls. And they have to do this every night. So maybe Monday night at 7 p.m. is about the time you're going to get a phone call from this particular coach. Well, if you aren't, if you're not going to go, if you have no interest in going to that school, trust me, that coach has better things to do than to talk to you. So you are doing the coach a favor by telling them, no, you're not interested. They're not going to, you know, typically aren't going to give you the 3rd degree. They might ask you what schools you're looking at and things like that. Sure, you know, tell them as long as those schools know that who they are. Yeah, so yeah, the college, you know, they'll be disappointed, but you know that you don't want to be stringing them along. Stick to the schools you're interested in, get rid of the rest, clear up your schedule, clear up the coach's schedule, and believe me, it just makes your life easier. It makes the coach's life easier too. So a little bit about recruiting trips. We talked a little bit about this. This is the best it gets. Most colleges, especially if you're looking at big schools, they're going to bring you out in the fall. They're going to bring you out on a football weekend where there's a home game. Imagine being a recruit at University of Georgia next year, this coming up this fall, and they're going to be the defending national champions are going to be coming out, and all the hoopla that's going to come with that in their first home game. They're going to try to get all the athletes out there for their first home game. Some schools will have, you know, if they've won a national title, they're going to get their rings and they're going to be presented at a football game. So they're going to want to, you know, or a conference championship. They'll bring them out there and they'll get out of the 50-yard line, you know, bring them out on the field and stuff. You're going to go out in the foot. It's going to be the greatest weekend ever. It's going to be everything is going to be rolled out for you. So it's really important that you're paying attention to what's going on. Okay. Are these the people you want to spend the next 4 years of your life with? Is this the place you want to spend the next 4 years of your life? And so think about the classroom experience, the kind of experiences, the practices, everything else. Watch all that stuff. The hoopla is great, but you know, kind of get, you know, really pay attention to what else is going on the rest of your trip. Be yourself on the trip. I kind of talked about this earlier. You know, if the whole team is a bunch of partiers, or you know, or whatever, if they're, you know, if you have certain interests and that team just doesn't mix with you, don't necessarily try to blend in or don't try to be cool and things like that. You know, just be yourself and we'll see where it goes, because chances are if they don't like you being yourself, you probably aren't going to like them that much either. So again, 99%, 90% of the time, this is kind of a moot point. You're yourself. Swimmers tend to be like-minded people and things like that. So the swimming community is largely, you know, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. So, you know, but I have seen kids where they, you know, just acted like jerks on a trip, and I don't know why they did it, but you know, and it created some issues in the recruiting process. Most teams will have a meeting after the trip, and they'll determine if the recruit is a good fit for the team. And again, in all my coaching years, I've only had one college call me up and say, "Man, that kid was a complete jerk." He was a complete jerk anyway, but you know, he didn't last long on our program, and so it wasn't surprising to hear that. But to have a coach actually call me up and say, "Wow, this kid was a jerk," I was like, "Wow," you know. So so anyway, but it would be unusual for you to come out of a college recruiting trip, and chances are, if they didn't think you were a fit, you probably didn't think you were a fit either. It wasn't going to be one of your choices anyway. So just be yourself. Yeah. So so for the parents, partying is obviously a big part of college. Well, is a part of college. Like, I don't know, it's a huge part, but depends on the school, I guess. But recruits getting drunk is no longer acceptable on college campuses. There have been college athletes that have lost scholarships because they did that. And so, I mean, that is the penalty of getting, you know, like there's severe penalties, suspensions and things like that. If you're out getting your recruits drunk, it's a liability for the college. It's a, you know, it's a black eye, you know, they don't want stuff on social media, you know, criticizing the school. So it really doesn't happen often. It's not to say it won't happen or couldn't happen, but it's unlikely to happen. As for the students, I would say this is a job interview. You wouldn't get drunk on a job interview. So you don't want to get drunk and do something really stupid that's going to make the team say, "God, I don't want that kid, you know, he's a jerk." So you know, I would recommend not drinking, and you know, so and don't let them pressure you into drinking. If you feel like you're in an uncomfortable situation, call your parents, call the coach. They're going to take care of it. So yeah. So again, I just, you know, years ago, decades ago, you know, that was what you did. You got athletes, they would get drunk, and that's what happened. But it's a different world now. So a little something for the parents. And again, this is kind of rare, but I think it's important to point out the colleges are recruiting your kids. They're not recruiting you. How, you know, so, I mean, well, let me rephrase that. The parents are recruiting the kids and they want to talk to the kids. If the parents are really, you know, aggressive or jerks, then, you know, that could hurt it could actually hurt your child's chance to get recruited. If the coach calls and wants to talk to the child and the parent takes up the time and the coach doesn't have a chance to ever talk to the kid because the parent's on there and they're talking about money or asking all these questions that the kids could be asking, that's a kind of a sign that you have parents that are hovering and they're just not going to want to deal with that for the next couple of years of their life. So there is a connection that where coaches are where you know, it can just be too much. Again, I've not once in my career have I had a college coach call me up and say, you know, we wanted a kid and we didn't get that kid because of the parent. So that's a good thing. You know, just that's a heads up. You know, it's not to say that you can't ask questions or get involved a little bit, but you know, let the kids take the lead on this and let the parent, let the, you know, coaches know that they're dealing with young adults and they can handle this. If a coach comes to a swim meet to watch you race, sure, if you swim fast, that's good, but it's not critical. They're really looking to see you. They want to, you know, they want to see what you look like in the water. What does your technique look like? You know, are you tall in the water? You know, and those kinds of things. Do you have good technique? What can they work on? What are they going to have to work on when they see you? Are there going to be some major changes? Those kinds of things. But the biggest thing they're watching is what happens after the race or before the race. They're circling your name, but man, right after that race, they're going to keep watching you. So you have a lousy race. Did you throw your goggles? Did you have a temper tantrum? Did you slap the water? Did every other swimmer on your team go talk to the coach after the race and you went and pouted in the team area? Is the coach telling you and pointing to the warm down pool 5 times and you don't ever go to the warm down pool? And then the coach is like, rolling his eyes at you, rolling his or her eyes at you. So are the coaches have to yell at you? Are you yelling back at the coach? Are you whatever? They want to see a swimmer get out of the race, go talk to their coach, go over to the warm down pool, or go warm down first, or go talk to the coach, whatever the process is. And then they want to see that athlete, being involved in the meet, cheering for their teammates, or getting prepared for the next race. If you're a top level swimmer, you don't have a ton of time to cheer, but they'll watch for you at finals when you don't have as many races. Are you cheering for your teammates? Are you engaged with your team, or are you sitting off by yourself? Those are the kinds of things they're looking for. They're not looking to see if you got a best time. And if you don't swim fast, they're not going to say, oh, well, we're not going to give you a scholarship now because you didn't get a best time. They're recruiting for you who you are, not who they hope you are. Do you reflect their team's values? So they're going to come to practice. They want to know if you work hard. Are you independent? Is the coach constantly riding on you to get things done or to do things well? Are you, when they're talking to you, are you able to talk like an adult, or do you just mumble all the time? Those kinds of things. The school does pick you. You have to, you pick a school, but in order for you to get a scholarship, they have to pick you to come to on a trip, and then they have to offer you the scholarship. So it's a two-way street. The school, you pick the school, but the school picks you too. And again, in all my years of coaching, I have one swimmer, probably one or two, that have ever where the kid was just a jerk, and there's just had a bad attitude, lousy attitude. Most of those swimmers didn't graduate and didn't finish with our program anyway, so I think a lot of them, they were gone by that point anyway. But again, I think there's little things that you can do to carry yourself that much better that's going to make you more recruitable. There's making a video of your technique. Some schools will ask for it. It's not, a lot of schools don't. If a school asks for it, you can film it very simply of a race in the stands. Just make sure you can see the whole swimmer. Don't try to zoom in as tight as you can, but make sure that you can see the swimmer's hand as it reaching forward. You can see their feet. You can, so give yourself, if they're in 50% of the screen, that's probably fine. They're just looking just to get an idea of what your child looks like in the water, what your swimmer looks like. In defensive sports, it's really important. Again, my daughter's a softball player. She was a pitcher. So they wanted to see the movement of her ball. They wanted to see what she did. They wanted to see her pitching against live batting so they could see, like, was she that good of a pitcher, or were they just lousy batters? So those kinds of things. They want to see skills. Don't put music to the video. Don't do anything crazy. It's not a Hollywood production. They just want to see the swimmer swim. They're probably not going to watch more than 5 to 10 seconds of the race, of the swim. They may watch the first turn and just see the flip turn or something, or maybe fast forward ahead towards the end of the race to see what your stroke looks like at the end. But don't send them the mile, because they're not going to watch the mile. You need to show them just a couple of 50s of them swimming, and it's probably plenty. In the video, especially if you're sending a video file, put a little video introduction of yourself at the beginning. If you have the capability to do it, put like a link, put the link to your CollegeSwimming.com site on there, little things like that. What your strokes are, who you swim for, what your name is, and then again, if you can have a link to that, or if it's in an email, make sure you put that information in the body of the email too. But it's good to have it with the video, because they might open this video and, who's this again? And they're like, okay, yeah, I know who this is now. So race or race-paced training, something like that. Again, it doesn't have to be, it's a real basic, and the vast majority of colleges do not look for that. So it's not important. Talked a little bit about social media, and I think it's really important to go through your social media and scrub it up and just make sure that that it's representing of who you are, what if it represents what you want to be represented by a college that's recruiting you. The colleges, the assistant coaches, especially young college coaches, are going to jump on. They're going to start following you or friending you on your social media, as they want to start seeing. They may just snoop around on your posts and see what you're posting. they're looking to get any information they can to see what kind of a person you are. So make sure that, make sure you're presenting yourself in a way that, that is going to be impressive to college programs. Not to say you can't have fun or be, have fun pictures at a swim meet with your friends or things like that. They're probably going to be looking for stuff like drinking and things like that or whatever. They might look at your friends' posts. So, you post something, you were at an event with a friend, they'll go to that friend and see what they're posting too. So there's a lot of aspects to this too, because they're investing for you the next 4 years of life. They want to make sure they know what they're investing in. This is the end of our talk. So this is the most important decision you're going to make, in your young life. This is the first major decision you're making in life. So here's some former bullet swimmers that did very well in the process. Right down here, Callie Fahey was very interesting. She swam for Michigan. She came down to Michigan, Ohio State, and she was really struggling. And I just looked at her and said, Callie, you're worried about picking between two great schools, because she had done the work. So this guy's still part of the Bullets now too, back from his Northwestern days. But I'm going to jump off here now. I'll take any questions you have. You can raise your hand or just shout out, whatever you want to do. All right, I see no questions. If you do come back, like I said, we are recording this, so I'll get it out to Todd or Jeremy, and we'll get it out to everybody and get you guys the link or access to it so you can look at this. And then if you do have any questions, you can reach out to us. And then we'll if you reach out to one of your coaches or reach out to me, if we don't have the answer, we'll try to find it. So excellent. All right. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you around on the deck. Thanks.